Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News Break. I'm Han-daeun in Seoul. Our top story this morning, Korea's National Assembly has just kicked off a month-long parliamentary session to deal with a slew of pending bills. We have our political correspondent Kim Myung-gil on the line with the details. Myung-gil?
Good morning, Town. With the general election held just last week, this is the final parliamentary session of the 19th National Assembly. The ruling Centre Party, which suffered a crushing loss in last Wednesday's poll, is attempting to push forward with its 4 labor reform bills, a service industry promotion bill, and an anti-cyber terrorism bill. But the chances of these bills passing is pretty slim, as the newly emboldened opposition bloc, composed of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea and the minor People's Party, is deeply opposed to the government and Henry-backed bills. Therefore, the 3 parties will likely focus more on getting 93 non-contentious bills passed by sitting idle in the Assembly's Judiciary Committee. The deputy floor leaders of the 3 main parties are slated to meet next Wednesday for working-level talks to fix the upcoming parliamentary schedule. The floor leaders of the 3 parties have already agreed to open 2 plenary sessions next month to vote on the bills. One thing they have yet to see an eye-to-eye on is who should take the soon-to-be vacant National Assembly Speaker's position. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea says one of its lawmakers should be made the new parliamentary speaker since it will be the largest party in next National Assembly. The splinter People's Party is siding with the Minju Party and plans to take on one of the deputy speaker positions. As you'd expect, the ruling Henry Party has expressed reservations about such a step. The new speaker will start work on May 30th when the 20th National Assembly begins. Back to you, Town.
Thank you, Myung-gil, for that. North Korea's top diplomat is in New York to sign a landmark UN climate agreement. While Lee Soo-yong is officially there to sign his name on the dotted line, more attention is focused on his possible meetings with world leaders as there are rising concerns North Korea is planning yet another nuclear test. Kwon So-ah reports.
North Korea's foreign minister has arrived in New York to attend a signing ceremony at the UN headquarters on Friday on the Paris Climate Change Agreement, which will replace the Kyoto Protocol. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency says Lee Soo-yong will also take part in the high-level thematic debate on achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, where the North is reported to have asked to make remarks. Attention is being drawn to whether the North Korean official will personally take the podium. There's no word yet on whether he will meet with UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, as he has done during his previous trips to the UN, or whether he will meet with his U.S. counterpart, John Kerry. The U.S. says no talks are planned at this time. Lee attended the UN General Assembly in September last year and in 2014 as the first North Korean foreign minister in 15 years. This trip comes amid mounting concern Pyongyang may conduct another nuclear test, despite tough new UN sanctions that have been in effect for more than a month. Speculation is rising that a 5th test could be imminent due to activity at the North's Punggye-ri nuclear test site. According to 38 North, a website run by the Johns Hopkins University's U.S.-Korea Institute, satellite imagery from April 19th shows vehicles and equipment moving around the entrances and the site's main support area. The analysis says there is no evidence a nuclear test is imminent, but that preparations cannot be ruled out. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Turning now to the latest developments in quake-torn Ecuador. The death toll has risen to more than 550 as fears linger over continued aftershocks. More than 46,000 are injured and over 100 are still missing. Over 400 aftershocks have rattled Ecuador since the earthquake first hit the country last Saturday, with the latest one Wednesday night registering 6.2 on the Richter scale. Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa said he's considering whether to issue government bonds to rebuild the shattered country. The European Union has charged Google for breaching antitrust rules. It also ruled that Google has unfairly made it a requirement for mobile phone manufacturers to pre-install Google applications on the phones, depriving consumers of a wider choice. Park Jong-ung tells us more.
The EU claims Google is not competing fairly in the European market and has breached its antitrust regulations. The decision comes after a year-long investigation into some of Google's business practices related to the Android operating system and Google's applications running on Android. EU regulators say Google's strategy of abusing its dominance and requiring phone makers to pre-install its apps is unfair.
It is doing so by imposing unjustified restrictions and conditions on manufacturers of devices who's running Android mobile operating system, as well as on mobile network operators.
The Commission estimates the Android OS accounts for a staggering 80% of all smart mobile devices in Europe and around the world. It argued that the tech giant was denying consumers a wider range of choice of mobile apps while stifling innovation. The Commission's decision could lead to hefty fines for Google, which is already facing EU charges for promoting its shopping service in internet searches at the expense of rival services. But industry analysts say the stakes are higher in the Android case, given that it raked in about $11 billion last year in advertising sales through apps such as Maps, Search, and Gmail on Android phones alone. Google has 12 weeks to respond to the charges. Park Jung-hong, ARIRANG News.
And that does it for now. Stick around for more news updates coming up at noon.